The Zetherian fleet floated silently through the dark void of space, their sleek ships gleaming faintly under the light of a distant sun. Commander Threx, the leader of the patrol, scanned the expanse with calm confidence. His race had dominated this sector for centuries, and no ship, no matter how clever, had ever challenged their authority. "Sector is clear," Threx announced to his officers. "Nothing but dust and drift. We will continue our patrol and report to the High Command." His words carried the weight of certainty. The Zetherians had no doubts. They were fast, numerous, and advanced. Any intruder would be detected immediately and crushed without mercy. But then, the sensors blinked, a signal unlike anything they had encountered before. A massive energy reading appeared on the fleet's long-range scanners. It was enormous, unlike the small scouts or transport vessels they were used to. Commander Threx frowned. "Scan it." "Identify the vessel," he ordered. The chief officer tapped the console. "Commander, it's unlike anything in our database. The energy signature. It is vast, but also restrained. It is powerful, but it does not radiate aggression." Threx raised an eyebrow. "Restrained power? What nonsense is that?" "Sir, I cannot explain it exactly," the officer replied. "It seems intelligent, controlled." Threx's confidence flickered for a moment, but he shook his head. "Prepare intercept. We will see what this is. I want a full visual on that ship." Within moments, the Zetherian fleet adjusted its course. Small fighter escorts darted forward, scanning and probing. But the deeper they went, the more they realized something strange. The human ship, if that is what it was, moved slowly, deliberately, almost as if it knew exactly where each Zetherian ship would go. When the first visual feed came in, the officers froze. It was enormous. Sleek, silver-white, and imposing, but elegant in its design. The ship's hull glinted with a strange kind of light that seemed to absorb the void around it. And yet, despite its size, it moved with perfect grace. It was not threatening in the way Zetherians were used to. There were no visible weapons, no aggressive maneuvers. But there was something about it that made the entire fleet hesitate. "By the ancestors," one junior officer whispered. Commander Threx's usual calm faltered. He leaned closer to the console. "All stations report. What is this vessel? How fast is it? Its energy output?" The readings came in. Speed unmatched, shielding unlike anything known, weapons, possibly, but they are not active. And yet the humans could destroy the fleet in seconds if they wanted. Threx swallowed. "It cannot be. It is too large. Too perfect. This is impossible." The Zetherian fleet hovered in uneasy silence. Even the smallest ships stopped their maneuvers. Something in the human ship radiated authority. It wasn't just the size or power. It was the confidence, the sense that this ship belonged in space and that anyone who challenged it would regret it. A single scout ship approached for closer inspection. The human ship didn't respond. It just drifted, silently observing. The Zetherian officers expected some kind of defensive reaction, an alert, a weapon scan, but nothing happened. The calm, controlled energy of the vessel made the scout pilot's sensors feel inadequate, as if they could not capture the true nature of the ship. Threx took a deep breath. "Signal them. Identify ourselves," the officer hesitated. "Commander, are you sure? We don't know what we're dealing with. It may not respond in a way we understand." Threx's jaw tightened. "Do it. Now." A calm message in the universal frequency used for first contact was sent. Silence followed. The Zetherians waited. Minutes stretched. No response. Not even a movement. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the human warship shifted. It rotated on its axis in a way that no Zetherian ship had ever done before. The movement was not aggressive. It was deliberate, precise, almost elegant. The ship aligned itself directly with the fleet, and then, with a faint glow along its hull, it activated a system that sent a subtle pulse through space. The pulse was not a weapon. It didn't harm anything, but the Zetherians felt it. Their sensors read it, their minds sensed it. It was as if the human ship was saying, "We are here. We are ready, and we are not afraid." Every Zetherian ship stopped. No one dared move. Commander Threx gripped the edge of his console, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. What is it doing?" the young officer asked, voice trembling. Threx shook his head slowly. I don't know, but we cannot ignore it. We cannot attack it. It is something else, something we have never faced. The fleet hovered, frozen, as if space itself had stopped. No orders were given because no one could decide what to do. Every thought in their minds seemed to stall under the presence of this alien human ship. The human vessel began to move forward, slowly, maintaining its position in front of the Zetherian fleet. It did not accelerate aggressively, it did not fire weapons. It simply glided, showing that it was fully aware of the Zetherians and fully capable of engaging, but chose not to. The officers whispered among themselves. It's commanding. Even without weapons, even without attacking. Commander, one said, we are frozen. I cannot give orders. It is overwhelming. Threx's claws clenched around the edge of his console. He had faced countless battles, thousands of enemy ships, entire pirate fleets, and yet for the first time in his career he felt powerless. Not because they lacked strength, but because the humans were unlike anything he had ever imagined. The ship came closer, slowly scanning the fleet with subtle energy pulses. It was not aggressive, it was curious, almost respectful, and yet the Zetherians could not move. Their minds were filled with awe and uncertainty. This is impossible, Threx muttered. They are humans. We have read about them, legends in the archives, stories of their ingenuity, their courage, their unpredictability. The officers looked at him, fear and admiration mixing in their eyes. The human ship was not just a vessel, it was a statement, a warning without weapons, a display of power without aggression. Signal the high command, Threx said finally, his voice steady again, though his heart raced. Report everything we see. We may be witnessing the beginning of something new, something we do not understand. The fleet trembled as the first message to the high command was sent. The human warship remained silent, still moving slowly, still observing. Its presence filled the Zetherians with a strange mix of fear, respect, and awe. For hours, the fleet hovered in tense silence. No one moved, no orders were given. The humans were patient, calm, and deliberate. They did not need to attack. They did not need to speak. Their mere presence commanded attention, and the Zetherians knew it. Finally, one young officer dared to whisper, "Commander, they could destroy us all, if they wanted, and yet they do not." Threx nodded slowly. "No, they are not like any enemy we have ever faced. This is different. We cannot react like normal. We must observe. We must learn." The human ship rotated slowly, facing the distant starfield, as if reminding the Zetherians that it was patient and in control. And in that moment, every officer in the fleet understood something profound. Humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were something else, something extraordinary. And as the fleet remained frozen, the human warship continued its silent drift, a beacon of calm power, waiting for the next move in a game that the Zetherians had only just begun to understand. The Zetherian fleet had remained frozen in space for hours. Commander Threx paced along the bridge of his flagship, the Vorath, his mind racing with questions. Never in Zetherian history had a species commanded such fear and respect without firing a single shot. The human warship hovered calmly, its immense hull reflecting starlight in a way that seemed almost deliberate. It was enormous, larger than any Zetherian capital ship, but its presence was not threatening. Yet paradoxically, it made every officer aboard the Vorath feel powerless. "Commander," said Lieutenant Kral, his voice low, "I have been analyzing their energy output. Their shields are extraordinary. The projections suggest that even our heaviest weapons would take minutes, maybe hours, to penetrate." Threx's claws tightened around the console. "Minutes? Hours? Our fleets can destroy entire systems in less time, and yet they make it seem effortless." "It's not just the shields," Kral continued. "Their maneuvers, they are precise, predictable yet unpredictable at the same time. We cannot anticipate their actions. Every move is calculated." Threx nodded slowly. "Yes, I see it. This is not brute force. This is intelligence, discipline, confidence." He looked at the screen again, at the smooth lines of the human vessel drifting like a predator assessing its prey, or perhaps its equal. Meanwhile, small scouting ships had begun to circle the human warship, attempting to map its design. Each ship sent out energy pulses, scanners, and probes, but every attempt was absorbed, deflected, or simply ignored. "Their hull seems adaptive," said an officer. Our probes cannot penetrate it. It's like it senses our every move. Another officer whispered, "It's almost as if it is alive." Threx's gaze did not waver from the display. It is alive, in a sense, but not biologically. Their technology reflects their strategy. Humans think differently. They fight differently. We must not underestimate them. For hours, the Zetherians watched. The human warship remained still, but the energy pulses it emitted were deliberate, scanning the fleet without aggression. It was studying them, observing patterns in their formations and movements, without ever attacking. On one side of the Vorath, Captain Dreth of the Zetherian Scouting Division reported, "Sir, I have intercepted fragments of communication. They are speaking to each other. Calmly, firmly, coordinated. No fear, no panic. Every instruction is precise yet adaptive. Humans," Threx muttered under his breath. He had read their history, heard stories of their resilience, their ability to improvise, and their courage in impossible situations. Yet seeing it firsthand was different. It is one thing to read about humans. It is another to witness them in action. The young officer who had first seen the ship whispered to his neighbor, "I feel small, insignificant, as if our fleets mean nothing to them." The neighbor shook his head. "It's not fear exactly. It's respect. I cannot explain it. But we are frozen, and yet we are learning, observing, trying to understand." Threx moved to the observation deck, his eyes fixed on the human warship. In the silence of space, it seemed to pulse with quiet authority. He could almost feel the intelligence behind every decision, every movement. Humans did not act recklessly. They did not waste energy. Every motion, every signal was part of a larger plan. Krall approached him. "Sir, their strategy, it is unlike anything in Zetherian archives. They do not follow our logic. Our methods rely on overwhelming force, intimidation, and sheer numbers. They adapt. They predict, and yet they remain calm. They are fearless in a way that confounds us." "Yes," Threx said slowly. "Fearless, yes, but not foolish. That is what makes them dangerous. They calculate, improvise, and execute with perfection. Every movement is intentional, and they have no fear." As the fleet observed, a smaller human frigate separated from the main ship. It moved in a pattern that initially seemed random, then began to execute maneuvers that neutralized the Zetherian patrol formations without firing a shot. Every step was precise, every action had a purpose. The Zetherians watched in disbelief as their well-practiced tactics failed before even beginning. Captain Dreth leaned forward, his claws gripping the edge of the console. "Commander, they have anticipated our formation before we even executed it. How is this possible?" Threx's eyes narrowed. "It is not possible. Unless they are humans. Humans always find a way. We thought we understood them. We thought they were chaotic, but this is mastery." For the first time, the Zetherians began to question their assumptions. They had always believed that strength, technology, and numbers were supreme, but humans proved that strategy, intellect, and adaptability could surpass all of that. Hours passed, and the fleet's initial panic settled into careful observation. The human ship did not attack, did not communicate directly, but the presence alone demanded respect. The Zetherians could not predict what would happen next, and the uncertainty was more powerful than any weapon. Lieutenant Krall tapped the console nervously. "Sir, they are not aggressive. They could destroy us all in moments, yet they do not. Instead, they are teaching us something. But what?" Threx did not answer immediately. He studied the human ship as it drifted, a silent guardian of its own intent. Finally, he spoke. "They are teaching us a lesson, yes, but not with weapons. With observation. They are showing us that power is not just strength or firepower. It is patience, discipline, intelligence, and courage." The fleet officers exchanged glances. None had seen anything like this before. The human warship was more than a ship. It was a lesson in what it meant to be exceptional. Suddenly, a transmission appeared on the Zetherian long-range network. It was faint but unmistakable. The human ship was communicating, not in threat but in observation. The message was simple. "We know you are there. We see you. We do not wish conflict." The bridge went silent. Even the youngest officers understood the gravity of the moment. No species had ever communicated so clearly while demonstrating power without aggression. Commander Threx slowly leaned back in his chair. Humans, they do not need to threaten us to command respect. They do not need to fire a shot to demonstrate power, and that is what makes them dangerous and admirable. One officer spoke quietly, almost to himself. I have never felt so inadequate and yet inspired. They are humans, and they have changed everything we thought we knew about the galaxy. Threx nodded. Yes, this is only the beginning. Observe carefully, learn, and never underestimate them. The human frigate that had separated earlier returned to the main warship, its movements deliberate and calm. It aligned perfectly with the larger vessel, as if signaling that it had completed its observation. There was no haste, no unnecessary energy expenditure. Everything was measured, intentional. This is remarkable, said Krull. They have studied us, learned our methods, and yet they have not attacked. They could annihilate us and we would have no chance to respond. But they do not. They are teaching us without violence. Yes, Threx said softly. And we are learning. Every moment we spend observing them, we understand more about what humans are capable of. Their intelligence, their discipline, their courage. It is unlike anything we have encountered. The fleet remained in formation, silent and attentive. They watched as the human warship moved slowly, gracefully through the void. Its presence alone changed the way they thought about strategy, power, and intelligence. For the first time, the Zetharians realized something profound. Humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were innovators, thinkers, and warriors of a different kind. Strength alone did not define them. It was their courage, their creativity, and their will to act with intelligence that made them truly formidable. As the stars drifted past, the Zetharian officers could not take their eyes off the human warship. It moved with purpose, observed with clarity, and taught without aggression. And in that moment, they understood that the galaxy had changed forever. Humans had arrived, and the Zetharians were only beginning to comprehend what that meant. The Zetharian fleet remained tense, hovering in space like statues. Commander Threx stood on the bridge of the Vorath, his claws tapping nervously on the console. Hours of observation had passed, and still the human warship moved with calm authority. Every officer in the fleet felt the weight of the human's presence, not threatening, yet impossible to ignore. Then the message came. It was clear, precise, and broadcast across every channel the Zetharians could receive. No encryption, no hidden meaning, no ambiguity. Leave the resource sector immediately. This system belongs to humanity. We do not wish to fight. Compliance is advised. The bridge went silent. No one knew how to react. Lieutenant Krull whispered, Commander, they are telling us what to do. They are ordering us, and we cannot even move. Threx's eyes narrowed. Indeed, and the terrifying part is, they are right. They could destroy this entire fleet in minutes if they wanted, and yet they do not. They are confident, in a way we cannot understand. Captain Dreth, standing beside the main console, spoke hesitantly. Sir, we have fought hundreds of species. Some would have challenged a command like this immediately. Others would have surrendered. But humans, this is different. They are not afraid and they expect respect, and we are paralyzed. Threx took a deep breath. They are teaching us something again. Humans do not fight recklessly. They do not threaten without reason. And yet they demand what is rightfully theirs, and we must decide if we are worthy opponents or foolish intruders. The fleet began murmuring. Some officers called for an attack, believing it would show strength. Others argued for withdrawal, feeling the undeniable authority radiating from the human ship. The debate was heated, but no action could be taken. Even the simplest maneuver felt impossible under the human's silent scrutiny. Lieutenant Krull shook his head. Sir, any attack would be futile. The humans have already predicted our formations, our response time, and our tactics. They are too prepared, too smart. We cannot win by force. Threx looked out at the human vessel. It drifted slowly, perfectly aligned with the Zetharian fleet. There was no aggression, only patience. And in that patience, the Zetharians felt the weight of the human's intelligence. Finally, Threx made his decision. We will not attack. Not yet, we must observe. We must understand. The humans are offering a challenge, not of violence, but of wit, strategy, and respect, and we must rise to it. At that moment, a smaller human frigate separated from the main vessel and began a slow, deliberate movement toward the Zetharian fleet. At first it seemed almost harmless, but then it executed a series of maneuvers that disrupted the Zetharian patrol formation, Without firing a shot, ships that had hovered confidently before now drifted awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. Captain Dreth muttered, "They have anticipated every move, and yet they have not attacked. They are testing us, probing us, and we are failing to respond," Threx nodded. "This is their challenge. They are not asking for submission, they are demanding respect. And to meet that challenge, we must think differently. Humans do not fight like us. They improvise. They anticipate. They adapt, and we must learn to do the same." As the hours passed, the human frigate returned to the main ship. Its movements were smooth, precise, and controlled. Every action demonstrated the humans' mastery of strategy and observation. The Zytherians began to realize that strength alone would not win this encounter. Intelligence, creativity, and courage were equally important. Lieutenant Krall spoke quietly, almost to himself. "Sir, they are showing us that force is not everything. Discipline, innovation, and courage. That is their weapon, and we have underestimated it." Threx looked around the bridge. Every officer was silent, studying the humans with a mixture of awe and fear. "Yes," he said, "we have underestimated them, and that is a mistake we cannot repeat." A communication channel opened unexpectedly. This time the message was direct. "You have 3 hours to leave the sector. We will not attack if you comply. Any aggression will be met with decisive response." The Zytherian High Command had trained them for every possible battle scenario, yet no one had prepared them for this. No one had faced a species that combined intellect, discipline, and fearlessness in such a commanding way. Captain Dreth's voice shook slightly. "Sir, what do we do? Do we comply? Or do we fight?" Threx's gaze remained fixed on the human ship. "We observe, we learn, and we consider. Humans are offering a choice, conflict or respect. To fight would be foolish. To ignore them would be even worse. They are testing not just our fleet but our judgment, our understanding, and our willingness to adapt." Lieutenant Krall leaned over his console. "Sir, their strategy is flawless. They anticipate every move. They exploit our hesitation, and they do it without aggression. This is artistry. This is mastery," Threx nodded. "Yes, and we must rise to meet it. Not with weapons alone, but with understanding. If we can comprehend what they are teaching us, we will not only survive. We may even learn something invaluable." The Zytherian officers began studying their own formations. They attempted small maneuvers, testing how the human ship would respond. Every action was met with subtle counter-movements that maintained calm authority. No energy blasts, no aggressive strikes, just perfect control and precision. One officer whispered, "It's as if they are playing a game, and we are pieces moving according to their will. And yet, there is no malice, only intelligence." "Yes," Threx said quietly. "This is not war. This is learning. Humans are teaching us to respect strategy, observation, and courage above raw strength, and we must rise to that lesson." As the hours passed, tension began to ease slightly. The Zytherians realized that compliance would not be cowardice, but wisdom. Fighting would be reckless, but learning from humans could strengthen their own fleet in ways previously unimagined. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Threx gave the order. "Maintain formation. Do not fire. Do not retreat. Observe. Learn. Prepare to respond intelligently, not recklessly. The humans have issued their challenge, and we will rise to meet it." The human warship remained still, silent, observing every movement. Its presence radiated authority, and yet there was no threat. The Zytherians were beginning to understand that strength was more than weapons and numbers. It was strategy, discipline, and the courage to act decisively when the moment came. Hours later, the human ship shifted slightly, a small but deliberate movement toward the resource system. It was a reminder of their warning. Compliance was advised, aggression would be met decisively. The Zytherians felt the weight of the choice. Leave and gain understanding, or resist and face unimaginable consequences. Commander Threx finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "We will observe. We will learn. And we will not act rashly. Humans have issued a challenge not to destroy us, but to test our intelligence, our discipline, and our courage. And we will meet that challenge." Lieutenant Krall nodded slowly. "Sir, they have changed everything. Our assumptions, our tactics, our understanding of power. Humans are extraordinary." Threx allowed himself a small nod. Yes, and this is only the beginning. Observe carefully, learn, respect. Humans have arrived in our space, and we will never forget what we have witnessed. As the Zetherian fleet held its position, the human warship drifted quietly toward the resource system. Its presence was commanding, precise, and calm. The challenge had been issued, and for the first time, the Zetherians understood that humans were not just another species. They were innovators, thinkers and warriors of a different kind. In that silent void, the lesson was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were to be respected, and the galaxy had just begun to see their extraordinary potential. After the tense hours of observation and silent challenges, the Zetherian fleet had finally regained some composure. Commander Threx paced the bridge of the Vorath, his mind still buzzing from the display of human mastery. The human warship had issued a clear warning, and yet it had not attacked. Its calm authority had left a mark on every officer aboard the Zetherian ships. "Sir," Lieutenant Krall said, leaning over the console, "I have been analyzing their movements, communication and energy patterns. They are not only powerful, they are predictable in ways that are difficult to counter, yet adaptable in ways we cannot anticipate. Their intelligence is staggering." Threx nodded slowly. "Yes, and it is not just intelligence. It is discipline, courage, and ingenuity combined. Humans think differently. They adapt quickly, improvise when necessary, and never act without reason. That is their strength." As the Zetherians continued to study the humans, the first signs of diplomacy appeared. A small human vessel moved closer to the fleet, not aggressively, but in a deliberate, measured way. A transmission followed. "We do not wish conflict. Our goal is understanding and cooperation. We will defend ourselves if necessary, but we seek dialogue, not war." The message caused a ripple of whispers throughout the fleet. Zetherian officers had always believed that alien interactions involved either dominance or subjugation. Never before had a species approached them with respect and intelligence, demonstrating power without hostility. Captain Dreth spoke softly, almost in awe. "Sir, they are offering us an opportunity to understand them, to learn from them. And yet we cannot fully grasp their intentions. They are humans," Threx nodded. "Yes, and we must approach this carefully. Humans respect those who demonstrate intelligence and courage. Aggression will only close doors. Patience and observation may open them." A small delegation of Zetherian officers was assembled to communicate with the humans. Using precise gestures, symbols, and universal signals, they sent a cautious message. "We are willing to observe and learn. We seek understanding, not conflict." The response was immediate and clear. "Acknowledged. Approach with respect and curiosity. We will demonstrate our methods. Learn and adapt." The Zetherians were stunned. The humans were not simply offering peace, they were offering knowledge, and the opportunity to learn from a species that combined discipline, courage, and ingenuity was unprecedented. Over the next several hours, the humans began to demonstrate their capabilities in subtle ways. Small tactical exercises were executed near the Zetherian fleet. Every maneuver, every adjustment displayed mastery over space, energy, and strategy. Yet no aggression was involved. Each movement was a lesson in precision and thoughtfulness. Lieutenant Krall studied the simulations closely. "Sir, they are teaching us without violence. Every maneuver we observe is a lesson in strategy, coordination, and adaptability. Our own tactics are primitive compared to this." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Primitive, yes, but not irredeemable. Observation and study will allow us to learn. And that is the opportunity humans are offering. We can rise, or remain limited by our old ways." As the day progressed, Zetherian officers began asking questions. How did humans coordinate so perfectly? How did they anticipate outcomes with such accuracy? How did they maintain calm authority under pressure? Each question was a reflection of the awe and curiosity that the humans inspired. Captain Dreth approached Threx with a hesitant expression. "Sir, they are not just demonstrating power. They are demonstrating ethics, patience, and respect. Even when they could dominate us, they choose to teach instead." "That is remarkable." "Yes," Threx agreed. "It is not enough to be strong. Humans have shown us that strength without intelligence and respect is meaningless. Their approach is transformative, and we must understand it fully if we hope to coexist with them." The human warship then conducted a remarkable maneuver. It projected a precise simulation of a hypothetical battle scenario using energy pulses visible to the Zetherian fleet. The scenario demonstrated multiple outcomes, depending on decisions made by the fleet. It was not a threat, it was a lesson. Lieutenant Krall stared at the display. "Sir, this is incredible. They are showing us the consequences of every decision before it is even made. They think ahead, plan thoroughly, and adapt in real time. Their intelligence is beyond what we have faced." Threx nodded slowly. "Yes, and observe this. We have not seen a single destructive act, not one. And yet the lesson is clear. Humans are powerful, intelligent, and disciplined. They command respect through action, not aggression." The Zetherians began mimicking the human methods. Small adjustments to formations, communication protocols, and defensive tactics were tested under the humans' watchful presence. Each attempt revealed the gaps in Zetherian thinking, but also the potential for improvement. Captain Dreth smiled faintly. "Sir, we are learning. Truly learning. Their presence is teaching us new ways to think, new ways to strategize, and even new ways to cooperate. This is astonishing." Threx allowed himself a rare moment of pride. Indeed, humans have arrived not to conquer but to elevate. They challenge us to be better, not weaker, and that is the greatest lesson of all. As the hours turned into days, communication between the fleets improved. The Zetherians learned to read the subtle cues in human signals, understanding intentions before they were fully stated. They observed human tactics in small exercises, gradually improving their own methods. Lieutenant Krall remarked, "Sir, even our most experienced officers are changing the way they think. Humans are reshaping our strategies without firing a single weapon." "That is revolutionary," Threx nodded. "Yes, humans inspire not just fear or caution, they inspire growth. They show us that true strength comes from understanding, adaptation, and courage, and we must rise to meet them on that level." Finally, a human delegation opened direct communication. Their message was simple, calm, and clear. "We respect your curiosity. We offer guidance in tactics, strategy, and cooperation. Learn, adapt, and grow. Violence is not necessary when intelligence and respect are applied." The Zetherians were astonished. Never had a species so willingly shared knowledge. Even when they had the power to dominate completely, it was unlike anything in their history. Captain Dreth whispered to Threx, "Sir, they are teaching us to be better, not through fear but through respect. This is extraordinary. Humanity is remarkable." Threx allowed himself a faint smile. "Yes, and we are fortunate to witness it. Observe carefully, learn diligently, and never forget what we have seen. Humans are not just strong. They are wise, disciplined, and courageous, and that will shape the future of this galaxy." Over the following days, Itherian officers continued to study the humans. They practiced new formations, simulated strategies, and learned to anticipate consequences more effectively. Every action reinforced the lessons the humans had already demonstrated. Intelligence, courage, and respect could surpass raw power. Lieutenant Krall finally said, "Sir, we are changing. Our fleet, our officers, even our understanding of power. Humans have transformed us without firing a single shot. That is something I never imagined." Threx looked out at the human warship drifting calmly in space. "Indeed, and we must honor this lesson. Humans have arrived not to conquer but to teach, and we must be ready to rise to that challenge." The Zetherians now understood something fundamental. Humans were not just another species. They were innovators, thinkers, and warriors of a different kind. They combined strength, intelligence, and courage in ways that demanded respect. As the human warship slowly departed toward the edge of the system, its calm presence lingered in the minds of the Zetherians. It had proven its power, taught its lessons, and inspired admiration. And for the first time, the Zetherians knew that the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same. The Zetherian fleet lingered at the edge of the resource system, their ship still humming softly in the void of space. Commander Threx stood on the bridge of the Vorath, his eyes fixed on the human warship that had silently changed the course of their mission, and perhaps the history of their entire species. For days, they had observed, learned, and adapted. The humans had shown restraint, intelligence, and extraordinary courage. They had issued challenges, demonstrated strategy, and inspired awe without a single act of destruction. Now, as the human ship drifted closer for one final demonstration, the Zetherians prepared to respond, not with fear or aggression, but with understanding. A transmission appeared across the fleet's channels, clear and calm. We see that you have observed, adapted, and learned. Your fleet shows respect and intelligence. Cooperation is possible. We invite a delegation to our ship for dialogue. The bridge fell silent. For the first time, the Zetherians were not reacting to a threat. They were being offered a choice. An invitation to communicate and form understanding. Commander Threx's mind raced with possibilities. This could be a moment of historic peace or the beginning of something far greater. "Sir," Lieutenant Krall said, his voice steady but full of awe, "this is unprecedented. No species has ever invited us to dialogue after observation. Usually they either fight or submit, but humans. They offer knowledge, respect, and cooperation. We cannot ignore this." Threx nodded slowly. "We will accept, but carefully. Approach with respect, with clarity, and with curiosity. Humans respect those who act with courage and intelligence. Any foolish action could undo everything we have learned." A small delegation of Zetherian officers boarded a shuttle and made their way toward the human warship. The shuttle hummed softly as it approached the massive vessel, dwarfed by the ship's immense hull. The humans awaited them on a docking platform, calm and composed, radiating an aura of quiet authority. Commander Threx and his officers were escorted into a large chamber within the human ship. The room was simple but advanced, with panels displaying data, star charts, and tactical simulations. Human officers stood calmly, their expressions unreadable but confident. One human stepped forward. His voice was calm, firm, and commanding, yet not threatening. "Welcome, Zetherian officers. We are pleased to meet you. You have observed wisely, adapted quickly, and shown respect. That is the foundation for cooperation." Threx inclined his head. "We are grateful for your patience and your guidance. Your methods, your discipline, and your intelligence are unlike anything we have seen. We wish to learn from you, not fight against you." The human officer nodded. "Good. Knowledge is far more valuable than conflict. We believe that strength combined with intelligence, courage, and respect is what shapes the future. And we see that potential in your fleet." The Zetherians were stunned. The humans did not boast, threaten, or belittle them. They spoke as equals, offering wisdom without arrogance. Commander Threx felt a rare sense of humility and determination. Over the next several hours, humans and Zetherians exchanged knowledge. Humans demonstrated tactical simulations, showing not only how battles could be won, but how unnecessary conflict could be avoided. They shared principles of coordination, strategy, and adaptability that the Zetherians had never considered. Lieutenant Krall watched in fascination. "Sir, they are teaching us not just tactics, but philosophy. Their approach to conflict, decision-making, and leadership, it is revolutionary." "Yes," Threx replied. "Humans do not rely solely on force. They rely on intelligence, observation, and courage. And they inspire respect through action, not fear. That is the greatest lesson." During the discussions, a small holographic simulation demonstrated a complex scenario. A Zetherian fleet attempted to dominate a sector using traditional brute force tactics. The humans showed how the same fleet could achieve objectives more efficiently through strategy, observation, and cooperation. Every move was precise, every decision intentional. Captain Dreth leaned closer to Threx. "Sir, they are teaching us how to be better commanders, better strategists, and better allies, all without firing a weapon. That is incredible." Threx nodded. "Yes, this is what the Zetherians have been missing. We have relied too much on power alone. Humans have shown us that true strength is a combination of courage, intelligence, and respect. We must remember this." As the discussions continued, mutual understanding grew. The humans did not demand obedience, nor did they belittle Zetherian intelligence. They offered guidance, showing that cooperation and diplomacy were far more powerful than conflict alone. Finally, after hours of dialogue, the human officer spoke again. "We believe that together we can achieve far more than alone. Your fleet has shown adaptability, courage, and intelligence. We propose an alliance, not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals working toward a common goal." The Zetherian officers exchanged glances. Commander Threx felt a surge of pride and relief. This was more than an alliance. It was a recognition of humanity's unique approach to power, intelligence, and diplomacy. Threx replied carefully, "We accept your offer, not lightly but with full understanding. Humans have demonstrated that cooperation, respect, and intelligence are superior to conflict alone. We are honored to stand with you." The human officer nodded, a faint smile on his face. Good. This is only the beginning. Together we can explore, defend, and understand the galaxy in ways neither species could do alone. Back aboard the Zetherian flagship, news of the Alliance spread quickly. Officers who had once doubted humanity's methods now spoke with admiration. Their fleets had been challenged not by weapons but by intelligence, patience, and courage. And they had risen to meet that challenge. Lieutenant Krall looked out at the human warship as it prepared to depart the system. Sir, we have witnessed something extraordinary. Humans do not conquer through fear. They inspire through intelligence and courage. They are exceptional, Threx nodded. Yes, and we will carry that lesson forward. Humanity has changed our understanding of power, strategy, and respect. This alliance is more than political. It is a lesson in what it means to be strong, intelligent, and courageous. As the human warship drifted toward the stars, the Zetherians watched in awe. Its presence had been commanding, its lessons had been profound, and its restraint had been inspiring. They had faced a species that was unlike any other they had encountered, and they had emerged wiser for it. Captain Dreth turned to Threx. Sir, they could have destroyed us in moments, and yet they chose not to. They taught us instead, that is something I will never forget. Threx smiled faintly. Indeed, humans do not rely solely on power. They rely on intelligence, discipline, and courage, and they command respect not through fear but through example. That is a lesson we must carry into the future. The Zetherians began preparations to leave the resource system, not as conquerors, but as allies. They had learned the value of cooperation, intelligence, and adaptability. They had learned that true power lay not in destruction but in respect, observation, and courage. As the last human ship disappeared into the distance, a sense of hope and purpose filled the Zetherian fleet. They had witnessed history. They had been challenged, taught, and inspired. And they knew that humanity's arrival marked a new era in the galaxy, an era where courage, intelligence, and cooperation could shape the future. Commander Threx stood on the bridge of the Vorath, gazing into the stars. We have been tested, he said quietly, and we have learned. Humanity is extraordinary, not just in strength, but in wisdom, courage, and respect. And we are fortunate to witness it. The galaxy will never be the same. The Zetherian fleet moved forward, leaving the resource system behind. They carried with them the lessons of the humans: patience, discipline, intelligence, and courage. They carried a newfound respect for a species that had arrived not to conquer, but to inspire. And in that moment, a truth became clear to every officer aboard the Zetherian ships. Humans had arrived, and they had already changed the galaxy forever. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and for the first time, the Zetherians looked upon the universe not with fear of conquest, but with hope for cooperation and understanding. The first alliance had been formed, not through force but through respect, not through fear but through courage, and in that alliance, humanity had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to rise above, not by destroying but by inspiring. The human warship, a symbol of restraint, intelligence, and courage, had vanished into the distance. But its impact remained, etched in the minds of the Zetherians, shaping their future, and forever altering the balance of the stars. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never forget.